Jersey Open Public Meeting Law. Notice of this meeting has been provided to the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, the Scotch Plains Times, and the Patch. Prior to meeting in public, the board met in executive session. We reviewed the legal status report, the harassment and intimidation. We have one LET email from Cheryl reporting expressing disappointment on the Cheryl Middle School 8th grade dance overlapping with the high school prom. 2LET is also on the same subject from Kathy and Steve Cannon. 4BUS, approval of the 2014-15 transportation contract renewals. Are these just some additional routes, Mrs. Sargent?
No, these are the routes that we have this year that will be renewed.
Okay. Oh, this is just the detail for us. Okay, as you can see, there's asterisks next to these next few. If it has an asterisk, we'll be voting on it tonight. 5BUS award for roofing bid. Original award. 26BUS approval of the Horizon Medical Dental Insurance. And that's it. Each of those additions do have stars, so we'll be voting on them. Do we have any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none? Okay. Then in accordance with policy 9322-R, we'll open the meeting for public comment. Per our policy, public comment, we just ask that you, if you wish to address the board, go to the microphone so that they can hear you on the camera at home. We just need your name and the town you reside in. We don't need your street address. We typically have public comment for 15 minutes with a maximum per speaker of 2 minutes. So this will be also the first of 2 opportunities to address the board this evening. So anyone wishing to address the board, here's your first shot of the night.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Suzanne Sherm. I live in Fanwood. I just wanted to express my support for a teacher that I have heard has not been asked to return.
Thank you.
My daughter's 3rd grade teacher, Mr. Richards at McGinn. He is an exceptional, caring, understanding, wonderful teacher. He helped us through a ton of really hard times diagnosing my daughter with anxiety. And he was extremely good with communication. We spoke to him almost every day, checking in and seeing how my daughter was doing and everything. And it disturbs me to no end to know that he has not been asked to return for next year. I think it's a tragic loss to this school district, to the children at McGinn, to the families at McGinn, and to my son, who won't have the opportunity to have him possibly next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherm.
Elizabeth McAuliffe. I live in Scotch Plains. I am also a McGinn parent. I'm here basically for the same reasons that Mrs. Sherm is here. My daughter, too, had Mr. Richards last year in 3rd grade. She was diagnosed at the end of 2nd grade with ADHD. As I'm sure many of you know, it's a whole process on how to deal with that and help her through education through that. And we had made a decision to have her first half of her year unmedicated and to work through it. And this is the first time I've dealt with any of that. She's my first child. And he was unbelievably supportive, helpful, even to the point where I forgot to do things at the last minute before we were seeing her neurologist, and he stepped up to the plate. He made us, he made her feel normal in a class. I also was the room parent in that class, and I was amazed how he had children who otherwise had no interactions with each other get along and be excited about getting along. One of the things I want to point out that he has done and did with the class is every week we got an update of what they had done all week, which as parents, you feel very disconnected a lot. This connected us to what our children were doing. One other thing, my child came home in 3/4 of the year, and they each had written something on the subject for where they were year to date. I had never seen my child so excited about a project that she worked on with 2 boys that she really had no interaction with and kind of, I was worried about her being with, and it was just amazing. So in line with Mrs. Sharm, I think it's a tragic loss to this community to lose a teacher of this stature who is incredibly sincere, never did anything but was upstanding, and I'm very sad that my other 2 children will also not get a chance to have him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCulloch.
I'm Jill Warren, Scotch Plains, McGinn. I support what they say. I don't want to repeat myself. I also have two daughters, one currently in Mr. Richards' class and one that was in his class last year. So I was very happy that my second daughter, had gotten him this year. I had sent Dr. Slocum a letter last year just saying how wonderful he was. I wouldn't mind if my other daughter had him, and I was so happy that she did get him. He does wonderful things, as my fellow parents have said. As a parent and as a taxpayer, I would really like to know how we go about finding out the reason why he's not being brought back. I don't know if that's something you could tell us, or how we go about finding out that, because I think as a taxpayer and as a parent, we should be able to find out that reason.
We can't. It's an employer-employee issue or matter, if you will. The only time there can be a public discussion about an employee would be something known as a Donaldson hearing. That would be requested by the employee. If that employee does not request that, we are bound to not comment on any of their status or performance or anything. So it's just not fair. I mean, it's a protection that all employees have. So, I mean, I don't mean to sound snotty or rude, but it's just that's not.
I just wanted to find out.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, but it's, again, for the protection of the employee.
Okay.
Now, they can request it, but there's a process to do that.
Okay.
So we
So
just,
he, the
we can't
teacher
just
would have-
unilaterally decide, yeah, we want to talk about it. We're not
So
allowed
the
to.
teacher would have to request it,
Yeah.
the person in
Yeah.
question. Okay. And just want to reiterate that it is a tragic, and I think, whatever district does get him, they're better for them, and, worse for us. We're losing one of the best teachers. And, not much more that I could say, but
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Anyone else?
Hi, Lori Galliu, Fanwood, New Jersey. I didn't have the opportunity to have any of my 4 have him in the regular classroom, but my son did have him in the summer enrichment. He's a little feisty second grader, and he went there and did the keeping in step in the summer, and he was in 3 straight back-to-back classes with Mr. Richards, and he loved every minute of it. Now, my rambunctious little 7-year-old going into a summer program, I thought, oh geez, how am I ever going to get him in July to go to these classes every day? And he needed it, and well, I thank God that Mr. Richards was there. My son not only went, he went happily every day all summer, and went to those classes, and on a day that we had some family trip somewhere in the summer, he couldn't make it every day. He was like, oh, now I'm going to miss science, and we're doing this project and that project. And I'm really saddened that he's not coming back. I was praying that he would have the opportunity to have him next year. And I really, honest and truly believe that it is going to be a loss for our community and our school, that we finally have this phenomenal teacher that is so out of the box and really keeps an open mind and treats each child with such respect. And I just hope that whatever reason he's not coming back has nothing to do with, and I'm going to bring it up and my friends have it, the rantings of one parent who is having, and I'm going to say it, she's prejudiced against him. She puts it out there on public forums, and she drills people in the schoolyard to try to get them on her bandwagon. And if his ratings or whatever it is has something to do with one parent who is out there on like a witch hunt for him, that's really sad, and it just breaks my heart. And I truly hope that that isn't what started this spiral for him. And, I just hope that maybe his position could be taken into reconsideration now that there's more opinion out there and more facts that it's out there in the public, words that were written against him. And I wish for the best for him, wherever it takes him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Galliu. I can say one thing about a process. Evaluations are done by multiple administrators in the district, all evaluations. And no strong advocacy or disparagement is a factor. That's all. I mean, again, because I'm talking to a process. So to hopefully allay your fears on a process, no. So, and that's, it's not fair to anyone, but to talk about how the process is and to hopefully alleviate concerns on how the district does evaluations, not a factor.
Right. And believe me, we have Dr. Slocum, and we're blessed to have her in our school, and everything she says and she does. And even coming here tonight, I spoke to her to just let her know and give her, the courtesy of knowing that we were coming here to speak tonight, because I would never want to do anything ill against Dr. Slocum. We adore her. And, and we just wanted to give her the courtesy of knowing that we understand, and trust everything she has done in her evaluations. We were just fearful that maybe it could have been maybe out of her hands.
And I understand that, sure.
Something where her hands were tied. And, we came with, we let her know that we were coming, and we came with her blessing. And,
Sure.
We just hope that whatever we say maybe has some small weight in maybe doing something. He really, truly is a wonderful teacher, and it would really be sad for our district to lose him and let him go somewhere else.
Thanks, Ms.
Thank
Galliu.
you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to come to the microphone? Okay, we'll close this portion. There will be one other opportunity towards the end of the meeting for public comment. Moving on to committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
Facilities has a report. I don't know what order we're going. I don't know if we're going in
Sounds like
alphabetical order.
all right, we have a few. All right, start lining up. All right, Mr. Lane spoke up first. Mr. Lane, let's hear from facilities.
Okay. The Facilities Committee met yesterday, and we really had a 4-item agenda. Number one, with respect to the Terrell Auditorium project, the Administrator, Deb Saradaki, brought to our attention that really to finish that project properly, we need to include air conditioning in those renovations. The estimated cost for this is $73,000, and this is under the Ed Data Co-op contract, and this is something that the committee could hardly endorse. I mean, I've certainly been in many events there, and air conditioning will be a wonderful thing for parents going forward. That's number one. Number two, we discussed the boiler installation at Brunner, which is an item that we have previously discussed. There is a small cost modification, not even a modification, I think it's really more of a clerical correction, because the cost is $185,456, of which $120,000 will come from the 2014-15 budget, and the balance will come from the capital reserve. Gesundheit. The third thing is the roofing bids were opened, and there were several contractors who came within pretty close proximity to one another. The second lowest bid is the qualifying bid. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just want to let you know that the contractor got back to us who was the lowest bid. And
Corrected their error?
Today, and they had submitted the wrong paper, and it is considered correctable under the state statute, and so we can go with the lowest.
We can go with the lowest bid. Okay, fine. Very good, okay. And in any event, all of the bids were less than the amount that we had previously budgeted. The last thing is that we had one of a continuing series of discussions to talk about, not necessarily to resolve, but to discuss what we can do to improve the drop-off, to resolve the drop-off problems at Brunner Elementary. We've come to no conclusion, but we are continuing to examine a series of options, and we'll hopefully have more news to report later in the year. And that's it for facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. And well done with that mid-report little curveball thrown at you. I must say that you kept your poise, dignity of that. Let's see what we can do to finance, Mr. Warner.
Well, thanks to facilities for taking the curveball, we are going to report that the bid, we're not going with the second lowest, but with the lowest bid for the roofing contract, because that bid we thought was not qualified or accurate has been adjusted. So that's great news, because it saves us a bit more money. But we had a bit of a longer discussion in finance, and I don't think anything was dramatically different than things that you've already heard this year. Several purchases came up, clarifications on purchases, or more details. For example, on technology, we discussed the purchase of iPads pursuant to a social studies curriculum and the funding, how much funding that would require and the availability. We discussed 2 capital improvements, the purchase of a truck, a multitasking truck. I can just think of a kid with playing with that toy, right? It has a bucket and has a plow in the front and things on the side. It's a great truck, multitasking truck that we're going to purchase. We had a great discussion about the bid, the price of Blue Cross Blue Shield, the renewal, which was pretty good news, and we're looking at the ramifications of that for the budget. We know that fringe benefits, medical insurance eats up a huge amount of our budget, and although the news is kind of good, it's always a lot of money no matter what. So we're well positioned, I think, financially for that. And it was part of a longer, another discussion we'll have from here until the end of the year on finance about where we're ending the year and what our financial position will be. So I think we're good. We're in good shape. But there are, as you know, a lot of needs, which we talked about at the meeting in terms of technology and roofs and boilers and air conditioning and the iPads. So there's a lot of things to spend our money on, and we're trying to look carefully at state aid and the availability of that state aid and our balances and needs so that we close out the year in the black, not the red. And I'm sure we will, but stay tuned, because there'll be a lot more work for us to do before we close the books in June. And apropos, you'll find out that we were told we will revote on the budget tonight. Not that anything's changed, but apparently we need to have a person-by-person vote, a roll call vote. So we're going to have that on the agenda for tonight, but not to worry, it's the same budget we already approved. And I think that summarizes all the issues that were brought up. Any questions? And I apologize, but, we have these meetings Monday nights, and this is a Tuesday night meeting. There's no way we're going to get something out in writing. So, do we still have to do that?
We do.
Spoken like, what a taskmaster. Okay.
Wait a minute, hold on. Now I'm at the edge of my seat waiting for it in the next few days, Mrs. Warner. Thank you for that report. Anyone else for committee reports? Mrs. Bauer?
So the curriculum committee met on May the 7th, and there were 3 items on the agenda. One was an update on Type to Learn, which is the web-based program to help students develop their keyboarding abilities. And one of the things that was reported is that over half the students doubled their proficiency, and some even more than doubled. And there were suggestions made about doing some workshops with parents and or updating them at back-to-school night so they would know more and be able to help with this Type to Learn, and other kinds of suggestions from the teachers. Another item on the agenda was e-cyber mission, which our science supervisor presented, and that was something new this year. You may remember we got some grant funding for this project. And I think she presented in advance talking about this was coming. She's going to be here at the meeting our next meeting to present about this. So we'll have a real update from her. And then the curriculum matrix was presented by Dr. Mass for 2014-15. And I don't know if she wants to highlight anything about the matrix, but
The matrix is interesting in the sense that it just demonstrates all of the courses that we offer from pre-K to 12, and the resources that correspond with the course and the date at which the proficiency for the course was approved.
okay. And I don't know if anybody has anything to add. Charlotte, did you want to add anything?
Thank you.
I'm confused. The matrix?
Just showing all the courses and
Right.
everything?
Is it a state requirement that we have a matrix?
That's right.
Okay. So it's on our website, or we just had to do it?
We approve it annually at a board meeting. It isn't,
This is one of those things that's still out of sync when we moved the election, I believe, also going in.
It isn't so much that the matrix is required. The board has to acknowledge annually when each curriculum piece was most recently approved, so that they don't go beyond a certain cycle.
Okay,
So that's
Thank
what
you.
you've codified.
okay. That does sound familiar.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, Nan, could I get some information about the Type to Learn program? I don't know if there's something I could be emailed or something.
Yes, we can send
Okay.
you some.
I don't want to be a Luddite, but I do want to say a word in defense of cursive writing.
Oh, this doesn't take that out.
What's
A
that?
lot of this is really to help them perform well on Park,
Okay,
and to have
I
the
understand.
necessary, because that's being done online, to have the necessary skills to be successful with that.
Did you say what? Cursive?
Cursive writing. I mean, there is a discussion in some literature that the emphasis on keyboard skills is coming at the expense of cursive writing, and there are those who believe that cursive writing has diminished utility in the world in which we live. I happen to think that there's something particularly human about cursive writing.
But not printing.
Clearly, he hasn't seen like her.
Printing has its place, but cursive writing.
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. It's funny, I mean, it's the kids, right? I mean, the kids decide that they're going to print.
Any other committee reports? Dr. Kulikowski?
Negotiations met on Monday, May 5th. think we had some positive interactions with the administrators, and we still have to meet with the supervisors. More to come.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Cleary couldn't be here this evening. She forwarded me her report concerning the strategic planning. So I'll read what she has sent. This was our second public meeting, was a couple weeks ago. People representing a cross-section of staff, parents, community members, community leaders, Board of Education members, and students were present. Our New Jersey School Boards Association rep coordinated once again and guided us through this process. This past session, the small groups broke out to discuss visions for the future and the initiatives we need to focus on to achieve these goals. In essence, the exercise was a picture of our high school on a dummied-up copy of Time magazine, saying if we were to make Time magazine cover, what would our school district be delivering? We broke out into probably 6 or so groups at least, and each group talked about what the school district would look like to be there. Notes and output from those are located on our website, spfk12.org. You'll see a section called Strategic Planning. You can see the outcome based from the first section as well as this second session. What Mrs. Cleary wrote in red was, everyone is encouraged to review the meeting notes and to prepare for the May 15th. That's in 2 evenings from tonight, this Thursday. Prepare for this meeting by preparing talking points for the targeted goal areas outlined. The public is reminded it is not necessary to have attended one of the first 2 sessions. So if you do have an interest in helping guide through your input where our district is going over the next few years, you do have an opportunity this Thursday for some input. In looking at our website and that section that you're encouraged to read prior to coming, some of the areas are technology, learning management, early childhood initiatives, educating the whole child, exploring partnerships with colleges, businesses, and governments. There's a few others, but the point is to look at some of these, see some of the ideas from the brainstorming, and come in with some ideas of your own for, if you will, mission statements to help set goals and targets to help guide the Board of Education and administration over the coming years through this strategic planning process. So thank you to Mrs. Cleary for that report. Any other reports? Closing this section, we'll move on. Yes, Mrs.
I
Sarah.
request that somebody make a motion regarding the budget.
You do that now? Sure.
I think that she had put it under
the
finance.
It's in the agenda under the.
Oh, I'm
Finance
sorry.
Committee
Then,
report.
yes, could I have a motion? I guess we missed it because we didn't call for a roll call, I didn't call for a roll call when we approved this at our last meeting. So could I have a motion?
Just to set the record, apparently, when you talked about the change to November election, this was something that got missed initially when they made the change. There was no requirement to do a roll call, but then the legislature this January added a section to the statute that required a roll call, and I get session laws, and that came in after the last meeting, and so it needs to be done by May 14th, which is tomorrow. So that's what happened.
Nick of time, wow.
Yeah.
Those blankety-blank legislators. Okay, could I have a motion to pass this resolution before us? Do you get the second as well, Ms. Saradaki?
Yes.
Then, with drum roll, could you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. McFall?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes. Motion carries. Send it with our love, Mrs. Saradaki, sometime tomorrow. Okay, our instructional updates will be taking place at our next meeting. Next section is letters to the board. As I mentioned in our additions to the board, we have 1 LET and 2 LET related to the overlap of the 8th grade dance at Terrell along with the senior prom. My understanding is administration between our middle school principal as well as Dr. Hayes has spoken with the authors of the emails, and while it doesn't look like there'll be any movement on those two, they will overlap this year, unfortunately. Going forward, it is a lesson learned so that it should not repeat itself going forward. With that, let's go to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse. At our next meeting, I will ask the board to approve the 2 out-of-district placements as listed on the agenda. That's 1S. 2S, we will be asking that the board affirm the superintendent's decisions in the 11 harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigations that were reported to the board during the month of April in our sessions on April 10th and April 24th. 3S, tonight, I would ask that the board approve 3 field trips as listed on the agenda. The first is for students to participate in the, it's a chess, they're going to get to play chess against the world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen, in Washington Square on the afternoon of May 16th. Dr. Slocum will be attending with them, and some parents will be going, and we're really excited. This comes out of our First Move initiative, Chess with Chesbin, sponsored by the Stage House. The night before, Dr. Slocum will be their guest at a dinner, and she'll also be, I think some members from the Stage House may also be there. We're not sure. So we're very happy that we can bring that recognition to them for their support and also to our students for their participation in this process. Terrell Middle School will be looking to take their student council to the Bronx Zoo on May 27th. 45 6th to 8th grade students and their chaperones will be there for leadership activities. And finally, the high school racism, genocide, and Holocaust class and 3 teachers will be attending a seminar that is a follow-up to the trip that they attended to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Could we, I'm guessing we have, but just send a thank you to the Stage House folks. Mr. McFall, I know, was there when they kicked off this initiative, as was I, and that's a nice partnership with, talk about a local merchant giving back, that, you know, this opportunity to play against Mr. Carlson, that's a big deal for those in the chess world. So, bully for, well, I shouldn't use that phrase, good for McGinn, and congratulations to the school and to the students that are given the opportunity. Anyone else for comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go on, Dr. Hayes.
Thank you. At our next meeting, as was reported through the Curriculum Committee, we will be asking the board to approve the 2014-15 curriculum matrix, and we will also be asking for approval of Mr. Justin Fiore from School 1 to be the administrator in charge of the creative summer workshops. And then tonight, I would ask that the board approve the personnel agenda as discussed in exec this evening.
So moved.
One of those moves, want to go to a set? Okay. Questions or comments? Ms. Saradaki, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFall?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Ms. Saradaki, business functions. For the benefit of the public, anything with an asterisk we'll be voting on tonight. So some parts may go a little faster than others.
Okay, 1BUS, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the staff training as reported on the superintendent's recommendations of May 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on staff training? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go on.
2BUS will be next meeting your acknowledgement of the receipt of the disbursement listings for various bank accounts. 3BUS will be the receipt of the security and fire drill reports for the month of April 2014. 4BUS, we're asking for your approval this evening for the transportation contract renewals for 2014-15 school year. These are packages that we had for this school year, and we were able to renew with the vendors at a rate of she put the wrong rate. The rate is 1.69%.
For Vogel?
For both Vogel and Amaker and Rawway also. That was the state renewal rate for this coming year.
So the dollars are okay, it's
The
just
dollars
the
are correct.
rate listed is incorrect?
Yes, it's 1.69%.
Okay. Did I hear someone move it?
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One abstention, please.
And an extension.
One
Abstention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on when you're ready.
Okay. 5BUS is the award of the roofing bid. What happened with the roofing bid is that the low bidder, his subcontractor had an outstanding job limit, according to the state, of 15 million. And he had outstanding jobs in excess of that. The state sets a limit for each contractor. What happened was, that's the paperwork that he had submitted, so we were planning to decline his bid. But then we got notice from him, and I confirmed it with the state, that his limit had been increased at the end of April, before bid opening, and they had not submitted that paperwork. If his bid limit had truly, if his work had been truly in excess of the amount that he was permitted to have, it would have been considered a defective bid, and we would have rejected it. But because this was approved at the end of April for his limit to go up, and that is a correctable item, then we can go with the low bidder. So
Okay.
I'm requesting that the board would accept the low bid from E.R. Barrett for the roofing work in the amount of $1,447,040.
So moved.
Second.
But that, we're not voting on tonight, is that right?
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Because you have
Questions or comments?
to get the bid out so they can schedule the work.
So this is below what we had budgeted?
Yes, by about $175,000.
Beautiful. And this is also, this is the total bid of which 40% is being picked up by the state?
Yes.
Okay.
And this vote is contingent, you'll see the wording, it's contingent upon the corresponding receipt of the ROD grant. We are still waiting for that paperwork. It's with the fourth approval at the state right now, but it has to go through 5 levels of approval, so hopefully by the end of this week or early next week, we'll have those actual
But
final
as I
documents.
understand it, you were so quick and ready in applying. We are far and ahead of most of New Jersey in the approval process. So I hope our board appreciates the fact that, we were, we had a great business administrator, able to jump in and grab these funds before they were gone. So, I'm glad, of course, it's contingent upon approval, but thanks to you for your great work getting those in.
Thank you. 6BUS, we will not be voting on.
Wait a minute, we still have to vote.
Oh, okay. I had a first and a second, I'm sorry.
All right, well, that was pretty heady stuff, so. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go on, Ms. Saradaki.
Okay, 6BUS, we will not be voting on tonight. We did have a bid opening today, but we're waiting for a couple of documents from the low bidder. 7BUS, we have a bid opening coming up for the sale of technology equipment. 8BUS, we have a bid opening for the fire alarm systems, which are part of one of the ROD grants. 9BUS will have an award for the bid for food service equipment for the park line, and a couple of stations for the high school. 10BUS, I'm asking for approval this evening for the purchase of a district vehicle.
The multitasking vehicle, right?
Yes.
Yep.
That was included in the 2014-15 school budget, and this is to replace two different vehicles that both were scrapped a couple of years ago, and we've been trying to borrow, when we can, township equipment, but it's been difficult.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next.
Next is a new boiler installation at Brenner Elementary School. I'm asking for your approval for the purchase. $120,000 was included in the 2014-15 operating budget. I'm asking for the balance of $65,456 to be transferred from capital reserve to make this purchase.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, we're voting on this tonight? Okay.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. 12 BUS, I'll be asking for your approval of the 2014-15 agreements with the Union County Ed Services Commission. 13 BUS, we'll be asking for submission of the facilities applications for renewal in 2014-15. This is the temporary instructional space, which the Terrell Middle School modulars and the Park Middle School modulars, and also the toilet facilities for early intervention, pre-K and kindergarten classrooms.
So,
That's next
Yep,
meeting.
got it.
14 BUS will be the professional services contract with Effective School Solutions for the 2014-15 school year at an amount of $251,500. 15 BUS is related services through private vendors. This is for special services, a curriculum consultant and a behaviorist. 16 BUS is our annual contract with Strauss Esme for our policy updates. We do not have the fee at this time, but we'll have it before the next meeting. 17 BUS is approval of contract with Frontline Technologies for our ASOP program, which is our attendance program for staff and also what our substitutes use. 18 BUS is designation of the official depositories for the 2014-15 school year. There are no changes from last year with all of our accounts at TD Bank, and the signatures remain the same as they have. 19 BUS is the annual approval to acquire services and purchase supplies for 2014-15. That includes advertising for bids, using purchasing co-ops, and state contract for all the standard purchases that the district makes. 20 BUS is the renewal of the NJSIAA membership for 2014-15. The cost has not changed from 2013-14, and it's $2,150. 21 BUS is the approval of the school lunch prices for 2014-15. They have gone up between 5 cents and 10 cents. What we have to do is these numbers have to be input into a program, and the state comes back and tells us how much we're required to increase, because they don't feel we're charging enough for our lunches. So,
Who doesn't feel that?
well, the state doesn't want us to be getting reimbursements for children on free and reduced and having that cause our lunch prices to stay low. So they want our lunch prices to be going up. And so they're telling us how much we have to increase
And then
now.
we input money in, numbers into their formula, and it spits back the required pricing.
Yes.
So there's no flexibility here.
We can increase more,
Oh.
but we're not. We're only increasing what we're required to.
Lovely.
22 BUS is participation in the Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission Cooperative Pricing System. 23 BUS will be the monthly business reports. 24 BUS will be approval of the bill list of the period April 18th through May 23rd, 2014. 25 BUS, I'm asking for your approval this evening for the purchase of iPads and related equipment for the Social Studies Department. And this is related to the presentation that you had at our last meeting, demonstration on the iPad use in social studies.
So moved.
So moved.
I think we'll take that as a second. Any questions or comments? I'm trying to do the math here. That I think is a pretty darn good price. That's through a state contract, it says here, Ms. Sardaki?
Yes, it also includes actually like 4 Apple TVs and a couple other peripherals.
And some service,
cart.
some support built in.
Yes, and a cart for storage, carts for storage, and
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, go on.
26 BUS is approval of the Horizon Medical and Dental Insurance. What Horizon has agreed to for this coming year is across the board 6% increase.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Sardaki.
That's the end of my report.
What a report. So this is like the reorganization meeting, right?
No,
No.
no, next month.
But we did many of the, well, okay, it seemed like.
Just 2, I think.
Yeah.
'Tis the season, the flowers come, and we just
Renew.
Renew.
Can't handle this luxury.
Catherine, do we have 10 to 15 minutes on that tape? 13? We'll see if we can accommodate. Okay. First off, any request to attend workshops? Any workshop reports? Okay. Dr. Kulikowski on 2OBB, would you care to move that?
Certainly. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Education does hereby approve the memorandum of agreement as negotiated between the Administrators Group and the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education for the period of July 1, 2014 to June 30th, 2017.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments or anything you care to highlight?
Can you say anything more about this?
I think the negotiations went very well. We had caucus, break, back and forth a couple times, and everybody was very cordial. I thought it was pleasant enough. Took a little longer than I expected, but shorter than I'm sure the other negotiations have ever gone.
And the contract, there's really no changes in terms and conditions. It's really just the percentages, if you'd want to note
Percentages,
those.
and I think a reduction of the number of credits that teachers could take during, that the administrators could take during the school year, so that they're not taken away from their duties.
Okay, and the percentages over the 3 years?
2.5, 2.0, and 2.0.
Questions or comments? for
Both sides were happy. Yes.
Ms. Shermer was also a member of that group. Thank you very much. I was also, but I was attending a moon glower function. My capacity as board president and proud father, so. But thank you both for
Sure.
taking one for the
We missed you.
team on that one, yes. Any questions or comments for either Dr. Kulikowski or Ms. Shermer on this contract? Cap, roll call on a contract? I forget.
Why not?
Why not?
What- What's it say in that book you just got?
I don't want to take the chance.
What are the legislators telling us now? Okay, Mrs. Sardaki, would you call the roll just to cover us?
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McFall?
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Board. At our next meeting, 30BB, we'll be approving the Board of Education meeting dates, both the open agenda and the regular public meetings. And it looks like next year's organizational meeting will be Tuesday, January 6th. That'll be January, no, the reorganization meeting, where, with the elections now in November,
Confusing.
any newly elected or re-elected board members, the officers, all that, they don't change on November 4th or 5th when the election takes place. That takes place at the reorganization meeting. This coming year, post-election, that reorganization meeting will be Tuesday, January 6th. That's kind of early for a board meeting, but we'll be swearing in newly elected boards people, possibly changing officers, and reorganizing. So, okay, we'll approve that at our next meeting. We'll also be approving the minutes for our April meetings, both the 2 executive sessions as well as the 2 public meetings. For the second and final time, in accordance with policy 9322-R, we'll open the meeting for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board, again, we ask that you step to the microphone so you can be captured on camera. All we need is your name and the town you reside in.
Hi, I'm Sharon Van Ostenbridge. I live in Scotch Plains. I'm the proud parent of 2 McGinn Elementary students. And I'm just up here to express my serious disappointment in the board's decision not to have Mr. Richards come back as a 3rd grade teacher next year, or any teacher at our school. My son is excited about school. He goes in happy in the morning. He comes out and does all of his homework. I don't even have to ask him. All of his homework is done. It's beautifully done. He's proud of his work. He's excited to go back in the next day. He comes out and he tells me of the discussions that they have at school. He loves it. And I really feel that Mr. Richards has done just a great job with the kids. The first day of school, he came out of school, the happiest kid, said, I am the luckiest kid. Everybody on the playground was saying how lucky we all are that we got Mr. Richards as a teacher. He said, Dr. Slocum must really like me because she gave Mr. Richards to me as a teacher. He's been encouraging. He's easy to speak with at any moment. Every week, we get an email saying, this is what we've done in every category, in every lesson, not every lesson, but every subject throughout the week. He's open to speak with parents at any moment and always reachable, really just a fantastic teacher. And I think it's a mistake to let him go. He's our only male represented teacher in the school. And I think all the kids look up to him for that as well. He's brilliant with science and math, and he really encourages the kids in both of those particularly. And the kids get along beautifully in the class, and I'm a room parent, I should say, as well. So I've worked with him often, and we back and forth emails. He's very professional. I just think it's a big mistake, and I hope that there's a chance that the board will come to this again and discuss it again and change your minds and decide to bring him back, because I think that he is, I think it's a mistake to let him go. I think somebody else is going to be very lucky to get him, and we will be the ones that are lost for not having him. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Van Ostenbridge.
Hi, Suzanne Sherm again. I'm in Fanwood. I just want to reiterate again, we're all here. We had 10 more families that wanted to join us tonight, and with short notice and sitters and husbands and stuff, it's hard to get everybody to come. I understand that this cannot be a conversation between you as the board and me as a mom, that there's not very much that you're allowed to say. But I would just like to have a further understanding of how the procedure actually works with the respect to if one particular family or one individual is having a problem with a teacher and they were to come to you with a complaint or with a situation or with a bullying, harassment, whatever you want to call it, if that person would be listened to, if that person would be heard, and then if you have parents that are coming out and speaking praise, how does that work? How does our praise,
Sure.
be represented versus somebody
Okay.
else's displeasure?
Recommendations from the superintendent. We do not run the schools. If we're in a school, we enjoy being there, but if we see a piece of paper on the floor, it is not our job, and we would be way overstepping our bounds even to ask someone to pick that up. We should pick it up ourselves just to be clean citizens, but the point is, we do not run the schools. We only act on recommendations from our superintendent. So with that, I'm going to turn to Dr. Hayes, because Dr. Hayes would be the appropriate person to answer your question.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Dr. Hayes.
So all staff go through a very similar process in terms of being evaluated. It's one of the things that we charge our administrators and our supervisors with as a very big responsibility. All staff in the district, particularly certificated staff that are going to be working with our children,
Is that
are,
tenured?
what?
Is that tenured staff?
No,
What
certificated
is that?
means that they operate under a license,
Oh,
for
okay,
example,
sorry.
to be a teacher or to be a child study team member. In particular, they are generally observed by more than one person.
Okay.
We do that because it's very important for us to get a 360-degree view of the total performance.
Okay.
Relative to the input of parents, we certainly value the input of parents and the reflections that parents give us. But I can tell you unqualifiably that no one parent can be the lever for a decision to be made one way or the other.
Even
It
if
would.
that parent went to social media and possibly threatened lawsuits
Absolutely.
and-
One parent can't be a trigger one way or the other because we never, our evaluations of staff are not that shallow. We are very thorough. We do an in-depth job of this.
I understand.
And so we are, and particularly, we would never evaluate somebody through social media. I mean, that goes without saying. It wouldn't be appropriate. We evaluate based upon what we observe. We evaluate based upon artifacts that people supply to us. It's a very in-depth process. Parents have a wonderful window into the strengths of many of our staff members, and we certainly are always pleased when parents such as you come out and attest to how strong our staff members are and how accomplished they are. And we are actually very happy to hear how positively they touch the lives of children. But that being said, parents are not in a position to see the totality of what we are charged with making recommendations based upon. So while I take full responsibility for the recommendations that go to the board, I don't do them without input from many administrators. And that process is valued and used consistently across the board. So we can't speak to the specifics because of confidentiality, and it would be inappropriate, but I can assure you that the process is done with fidelity, and it is done fairly.
Well, we have to trust that,
Right.
because that's all we can do. But I do really want to reiterate that this is really, this specific situation is going to end up, and it already is reflecting very poorly on the district because of the circumstances.
I can't control the actions of any individuals.
None of us can.
And so, for that, if there are some individuals who are making decisions and putting things out in social media, from my view, not appropriately, there's very little I can do to rein that in. But I can tell you that that has no bearing on the decisions that have been made.
I hope it doesn't, and it's an unfortunate coincidence.
Right.
But it is looking very poorly on.
You know, I understand completely, but I hope that you'll also trust that these decisions have been in process for a long time, and nothing that happened yesterday, for example, is influencing the decisions that have been worked on for a number of months.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello again, Elizabeth McCall of Scotch Plains, and I apologize ahead of time if I'm reiterating things, and it's obvious we feel very emotional about this, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I understand there's many factors in hiring or retaining a teacher and letting a teacher go, budget reasons, that sort of thing, but I feel like there was such a disconnect in this case. I mean, you always come across where some parents like a teacher, some kid connects with a teacher that your best friend thinks was a terrible teacher, and that happens all the time. I have never heard anything, except for one obviously unstable human being, like above stellar for this person. So I guess my question is, I should say for Mr. Richards, for the record, how can we change that in the future? Like, I feel like and I think what's not sitting with us is that I feel like we're just playing catch up now. So in the future, if I think this teacher is the greatest thing since the sliced bread, is there something that we can do? And if not, just generally, but also, is there a reconsideration process, and what can we be involved in that? Writing letters, doing a thing? I mean, if it's done for Mr. Richards, sad to say and nauseating as it is, okay, what can I do the next time? A teacher who's not yet tenured, who's amazing, is there something we can do about that?
Well, the evaluation process is an administrative function. It has to take place in that venue. In that regard, we never put teachers up for a public vote in the sense of how many parents like you and how many parents don't like you. That would not be an appropriate way for us to evaluate staff.
No, I agree.
So with all respect, I've heard many of you comment tonight about the faith that you have in your principal. The principal was involved with the decision, so were several supervisors, so was the assistant superintendent for instruction, and that's not only in this particular case, but across the board. For every teacher that achieved tenure tonight, and many of them did achieve tenure tonight, they've all gone through that process over a course of several years. For as much as you see the sides that you need to see that are very positive, you're just, as a parent, you're not in a position to see all of the things that we see, that we have to base the decision on. And that's about as simply as I can put it. We're happy that all of the teachers that parents speak well of are touching the lives of children in such positive ways. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to determine who's on track for tenure and who's not. And that's an administrative role that we have to take responsibility for.
And I do understand that, and I don't think that it should be like up for public auction whether a teacher should stay. I do respect that, and I respect your decision in that regard. I guess I'm just asking, like, in the future, I usually choose not to bombard people with letters. We're all busy, and people don't want to just read whatever, but is that something that, as a parent, I should do? Like, I've always sung his praises, and he's now just, like, say, an example. Should I be writing letters for teachers just to help weigh in on the process somewhat?
Well,
I guess I feel like, was it too silent on the parent end for him that wasn't considered?
No, that's not what factored into this at all. I mean, I would always encourage a parent, if they've had a positive experience with a teacher, it's always wonderful for them to write on behalf of the teacher. And we acknowledge those letters, we appreciate those letters, but again, similar to we don't do it publicly that way, getting a whole long line of letters, generally letters such as that confirm what we see in the classroom. So I would always encourage you to write a letter at the end of the year, mid-year. We get many letters on behalf of staff, and we welcome those. But I don't want you to think that a failure to write a letter in this case, that you go home feeling somehow you didn't do something you needed to do. We're very aware of what the parent view is in this particular case, and I can't say too much more about that because I can't venture into the place where I would be talking about the pros and cons of how the decision was made. That wouldn't be fair to the employee and not fair to the process. But by all means, anytime you go through the district and you have a good experience with a teacher, we're always happy to hear about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McAuliffe.
Lori Manal, Scotch Plains. Just very briefly, I wanted to echo the sentiment of the parents that are here about Mr. Richards. We had a wonderful experience this year as well. I'm a terrible public speaker, so I shared
You're
my views.
doing fine.
I shared my views with Dr. Hayes and Dr. Slocum already, so I'm not going to take up any more time, but I just wanted to echo the sentiment of all the parents that are here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minall. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Sure.
Jill Warren, Scotch Plains. Again, I just want to reiterate that, I have 2 kids that have Mr. Richards, and I see no difference from last year to this year of his academic teaching. I was privileged to have him for 2 years and saw no change. I know he had some health issues this year, which did not reflect in his teaching at all. So I just want to put that out there, that that did not, he still gave them the same amount of work that he did last year. Everything was, the same. I was just so pleased with everything. I'm not sure if you really answered the question about, could this decision ever be overturned? Or is the only way that it can happen does Mr. Richards have to be the one to come out and appeal it?
At this point, the board votes upon my recommendations for renewals. There is a process that Mr. Richards can engage in if he disagrees with that decision, and we have to leave that in his hands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Anyone else? Going once? Okay, then I'll close this portion and move on to the good of the order. Anyone for the good of the order? Yes, Mrs. Winkler.
I had two events that I was lucky enough to attend in the last few weeks. Kohl's had their annual art show, which was fun as always, and I love seeing the things they do. But it was particularly interesting this year as it's the 50th anniversary of the school, the 50th birthday, as they've been celebrating for the last few months now. But the students had a project, they made ceramic fish, and so they created a school of fish. Technically, each student made a fish, and they're going to hang as a mural, I think, in the corridor of the school for perpetuity, I guess. I made sure to take a picture of my son's fish, because I know it's not coming home. So that was really nice to see. I have to hand it to Mrs. Gunther Riley. She's very creative. She brings good stuff out of them. And then I had the pleasure of attending a good chunk of, unfortunately not all of, the District Music Festival, which was really nice to see. Really fun. We had a great time. Students are very talented, and our teachers bring out the best in them, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Anyone else for the good of the order? I got a couple things. First off, it really stinks when you're older than a building that's celebrating its 50th birthday, but I digress. Speaking to the talent of some of our students, it was announced the other day, there's something called Rising Stars. It's supported by the Paper Mill Playhouse, and for lack of a better description, it's the New Jersey High School Tonys. So Our Rep Theater just put on How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and Chris Centenaro has been nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and Lina Zikis has been nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Our Pitt, I think it was. Orchestra, thank you, also received an honorable mention nomination. So those are for anyone who participates in many high schools in New Jersey do. They are adjudicated. You have to receive a certain score to get it and to be nominated, and I think there's probably maybe 5 or 6 nominees for each category. So the fact that we have 2 for our supporting, both in a male and a female role, that's a testament, as Mrs. Winkler was saying, to the talent as well as the guidance that our educators provide for these young people to foster their talent. So good for them. And in keeping in that vein, the reason I wasn't that administrator burning the midnight oil negotiations was our Moonglowers, our jazz band in the high school, our state champion Moonglowers, they had a terrific opportunity. This is the 2nd year in a row. They played in a jazz club just off of Bleecker Street in the Village called The Garage. They were the early set, if you will, that it was, I think, 7 till about 10. And it's a real live jazz club, and they had their vocalists with them as well as their full orchestra, and they played for 3 hours. They had opened up the front doors so the street was open. It was on Cinco de Mayo, so anyone that recalls, it was a Monday, so I think that kind of played into why they allowed a high school band to play in a jazz club. But they were the early set, and it was just kind of neat. People were stopping on those that didn't come in were stopping on the street and just kind of dancing the evening away to our kids' music. So plaudits to Mr. Tutoriello, our leader of the Moonglowers and fine arts supervisor, who had made this connection. I think this is the 2nd year in a row they've been able to play there, and the kids have another quiver in their thing. So good for them. And it was a kind of a cool evening to watch the kids doing it, and they thought they were it. So, and they kind of were for the night. So anyone else for the good of the order?
Well, just the artwork. Speaking of the talent of our students, we have gorgeous new artwork.
Yes, this is from Park this month.
Okay, upcoming meetings. This Thursday, strategic planning, 7:30 here in Evergreen Multipurpose Room. Our next board meeting will be Thursday, May 29th, and then we have Thursday, June 12th, and Thursday, June 26th, before we take the month of July off from meeting standpoint. And we have graduation actually in between on the 19th, the high school graduates. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you at strategic planning or the 29th, folks.